One of the reasons why the panel discussions are so important is that we can start to talk about some of the challenges we are facing as the Nama people, as a community collectively, to find answers, solutions for these challenges. For today, we will have a very, very important topic of discussion that will focus on the state of education in the �Karas region, so that we can, as a community, collectively look at what the state of education in our region is, what the future holds for us, because education plays a central role in shaping what the future will look like for our people. So I know that the speaker that will do the presentation is extremely passionate about this topic, because he has a love for the community and he's passionate about seeing change in our community. One of the vehicles of change, as we know, is education, where in Nelson Mandela, the late president, said that education is the most powerful weapon that can be used to change the world. So therefore, I want us to pay close attention to this presentation. We also welcome all of our viewers online that is joining us at the Nama Cultural Festival from around the world and from the different corners of the length and breadth of Namibia, those in Botswana, those in South Africa. We welcome you online. And I will now welcome the speaker, Mr. Baisako. He is also the chairperson of the �Karas Regional Education Forum, and will do the presentation on the state of education, focusing on the �Karas region as the case study for us. Mr. Baisako, the floor is yours.
Good evening to everyone present. Good evening to those online. Thank you, Mr. Stearman, for this opportunity that you were able to slot me in at the last minute. Apologies, my voice is not very good at the moment because I'm trying to recover from a flu. So hopefully everybody will be able to hear me clearly. I will try my level best and try to do justice. As was introduced by Mr. Stearman, I want to make a few remarks about education, and specifically in the �Karas region. But what I'm about to say is probably not only relevant to the �Karas region, but I will try to draw lessons based on the data that is available. I'm not here to provide any solutions. You could actually be disappointed that I will just be highlighting a problem that you may be already aware of. But what I felt important was to say, very often one is aware of something, you hear people talking about it, and then the next thing happens, and then nobody talks about it. But whenever someone tries to quantify something with data, put the facts on the table, that very often rings a bell. And this is what I am going to try to attempt today or tonight. As was indicated earlier on by Mr. Stearman, I'm a member of the �Karas Regional Education Forum, the chairperson of the forum. And I'm actually here in that capacity. These remarks that I'm making. Now, just for background, a regional education forum is a body or entity established in terms of the Basic Education Act. And it's an advisory body to the minister on matters of education. It consists of diverse stakeholders. I think it consists of around 20 people, if I'm not mistaken. Quite a number of participants. It's churches, civil society, unions, traditional authorities, school boards, quite a diverse number of stakeholders that make up this forum. This forum is appointed by the minister on a 3-year basis, and our forum has been appointed around August last year. So we are now basically in our first year. And as a result of this engagement, obviously I was already making some observations with respect to the state of education, and I'm sure everybody has been. We know that whenever the results are published early in the year, especially the grade 11 and 12 results are published, everybody gets a fright when the statistics are provided, and there is a little bit of noise, and the dust settles, and life returns to normal. But while life returns to normal, there is actually something catastrophic that is happening unnoticed. And this is what I'm actually trying to highlight in the conversation. And I will try to use the data of the past 3 years from 2022 up to 2024. I will use the data for the grade 11 because that was the last grade previously before things changed. And I'll try to use that data and zone in on that matter. Now, as I've said, it's not necessarily just applicable to �Karas. We know that, if I remember correctly, �Karas was apparently the previous year number 5 on the national ranking. And now it has slide or dropped down to number 12 or 13 or 11 or whatever. It's a number around there. So it's quite a drop. And again, as usual, all of us got a fright asking ourselves, so how did that happen? And again, that forced me to look a little bit into the data, into the facts, to see what are the facts telling us. And that's what I will try to do here. So we will be looking at, there are obviously quite a number of subjects, and there are quite a number of schools in the region, but I will be looking at consolidated data. And the data that I will be looking at is not data that I have made up. It's data that was provided by the Directorate of Education of �Karas during the annual Principals Conference in Lutritz, I think around February. I attended that conference, and that's where the data was provided. So it's not anything that I'm making up. It's official data that we got. And as I said, we'll be looking at the grade 11 results. And I have chosen a subset of the subjects that are provided, and for a specific reason. I have chosen languages, and then I have chosen mathematics, I have chosen science subjects, and also accounting. And the reason why I have chosen those subjects is literally because those are the subjects that enables you to move into the careers of the future. So it's just a subset. But those are probably the most important subjects, at least in my opinion. And that's why I have chosen them. Now, on these slides, I try to give a picture of the results over the past 3 years for each one of those subjects. And because the first question that came to my mind whenever these poor results are announced is to say, where is the problem? Are the learners not understanding the content? Are they not understanding the questions? And perhaps as a result of those two, not providing the right answers. So therefore, the obvious question to me was, what is the proficiency of the learners in the language of instruction? Because that's the language in which all the subjects are provided or instructed and so on. And that's the reason why I've started at languages. So I look at English to see, but what is the proficiency of English of the learners over the past 3 years? How did they do in English? And it's interesting to note that they're actually not necessarily doing bad in English, if one looks at it. If one looks at the chart on the table, on the screen, you will see below from A star. Those are the symbols that one can obtain from A star up to U. So it's A star, then you get a A, then you get a B, C, D, E, F, G, and U. U means ungraded. Right. Now, some of us are from the older generation, so in our time, if somebody says, I have got an A, then you are sure you must have scored something above 80. There was no debate about it, but I understand these days it's debatable. It's fluid. It could be a 75. It could also be a 90. Okay. So be that as may, those are the different scores. And if you look at the slide, then you can see, okay, and those are the numbers of the learners. If, for instance, for A star, in year 22, there were 24 learners. In 23, there were 49. In 24, there were only 4. So that's basically how you read what is in front of you. Now, and I consider, without being academic about the whole thing of the percentages, I consider anything up to a D as a pass. Anything below a D, in my opinion, is a fail. And I'm assuming that D ends at 50. So it means if you have anything D or below, then it probably means that you scored a 45. A 49 and below. I'm hoping that a D is now not a 45 or something because of the fluidity of the whole situation. Right. So from that, you can actually see from D to that side, from A star up to D, you can see the tall pillars there. Quite a number of learners are actually there. You can see the vast majority of the learners are actually there. So if you see the tall graphs to the left, then that's sort of good news. I have actually a graph next to it, that pie chart. If you look at that pie chart, what that pie chart does is it basically consolidates all that information there. But it looks at those who scored E up to U. Basically, in my opinion, those who have failed. And if you look at 2022, 8% of the learners failed English. if one looks at the definition of 49 and below. 2023, 11% failed. 2024, 17% failed. So it's getting worse. That's the first thing. Even though they are not doing that bad in English as such, the bigger portion, if one adds up those numbers, then you get to a 36. So 74% of the learners scored D and better. So that's good news. That's good news. So one can at least assume they understand the teacher that is standing in front of them. They can read the material in the book and comprehend, learn something, read the question in the test or in the exam, and try to give a proper answer. One can assume that from that statistic. Now let's move forward. Then we come to, and by the way, if I remember correctly, there are some subjects that you must pass in order to be considered to have passed the grade. I understand it's the English language, or maybe some languages, I could be wrong here, but mathematics is also one of those that is important. And there is obviously a reason for that. So the next result that we'll be looking at is mathematics. Doesn't that look frightening? Our learners can't count. They can't count. In 2022, 79% of the learners failed. And by fail, I mean 49 and below. 79% of the learners failed mathematics in grade 11. 2023, 81%. 2024, 82%. So again, just with English, it's also getting worse. But the frightening part is the big proportion of it. And we all know the role of mathematics. First of all, there are requirements in terms of what you should be scoring in mathematics to be considered to have passed. That's the first thing. But we also know the role of mathematics going forward when you want to study beyond grade 12 and 11. We keep saying, well, if you don't do well in school, formal school, go to VTCs. And it was interesting to note the other day, with the same thinking, that I actually looked at the entry requirements of NIMT. NIMT wants mathematics. Mathematics is important in the entry requirements for NIMT. So that was quite interesting to observe that. What does that mean? With this kind of statistic, a lot of our learners will actually struggle to get into the places like NIMT, UNAM, NAST, IUM, and all the tertiary education. And also significantly, the kind of careers or the kind of studies that you can undertake with this kind of result is obviously very limited. You won't be able to go into engineering. You won't be able to go literally into anything science. You won't be able to go into things like geology and so on. So literally, almost 80% or more of our learners literally simply can't access those key careers. What does that mean? Because that's the future, as I have indicated earlier on. If we can't get our learners in there, our children in there, they probably have to go and study social sciences, or whatever else, where does that put them on the economic ladder? Below. That's the direct implication of this. That's the direct implication or the interpretation of this result. So it's frightening. I obviously, as I have indicated, I have no solutions. I do not know why we have this kind of a result for mathematics. But I know mathematics is also one of those subjects for which there is a lot of phobia. People believe and have been made to believe that it is a difficult subject and that I'm actually not made for it. You have actually failed before you started. And with me having done mathematics myself, I keep telling people, mathematics is the only subject where you know exactly what will be in the exam. Whether it will be 2x or 3x, but there will always be an equation with an x and a y and a z and so on. You always know what will be there. So therefore, it's actually not a very difficult subject, but there is a huge phobia around it. Obviously, with this kind of result, which seems very consistent, maybe one can even drill down to the various schools and see. Obviously, different schools make different contributions to these results. There could be some schools who are doing better. And by the way, even those results are available if one wants to drill down into those facts and so on. But the bottom line is, it's frightening to see how poorly our learners are doing in mathematics. Let's look at the next subject. KKG. That is now our mother tongue. That is now our mother tongue. And it's probably also the subject that we ought to be doing reasonably okay, because it's something that you know from birth and so on. And even there, not looking very good. 2022, there was 16% of learners that failed, which means 49% and below. 23, it was 21%. 24, it was 48. Again, it's the same sliding to the negative side. So I actually don't know what's happening exactly. But again, this is the beauty of data. One can perhaps ask the question, why are we regressing year on year on? What is happening here? And those are probably the questions that all of us should be asking ourselves and deep delve into. But that is the mother tongue. It's not as bleak as it was with mathematics, but it should be better than this. Let's look at the next one. Biology. Biology is a subject that you learn. You try to memorize things, assuming that you can understand English and try to remember it. And this is exactly the reason why I was first talking about English. But if one looks at the results of biology, again, not a very good picture. Why? Around 50 and more % of learners have not made it for biology. The question is why? In Afrikaans, we used to say leervakke. I don't know what is leervakke in English, but which basically means that unlike mathematics, that you have to reason out a lot of things in physics and so on, biology, you probably must just try to remember something. Yeah, so if you are English proficient, why are you not able to absorb that material? Big question. Let's look at the next one. Chemistry. Chemistry. Similar trend. In 22, 62% of the learners failed chemistry. In 2023, 55. In 24, 61. What's happening? Chemistry. Let's look at the next one. Physics. Similar trend. Between 50% and 57% of the learners not making it in physics. We have covered English plus Kweko cover plus science. With these results, where do we honestly think our learners, our children will be in the science world? No way. It's simply not possible. It does not matter what we say. It's simply not possible. And the way the world is going, a lot of the mundane jobs are going to be replaced with computers, artificial intelligence and stuff. Those are the repetitive stuff. The stuff that is covered by science is probably the stuff that will be least, even though artificial intelligence will have a lot of influence there, will probably be the least threatened by those technologies. But we are nowhere to be found. Let's look at the next one, and probably the final one, accounting. I decided to look at accounting from the perspective of business. Accounting is a very important subject as well in the business world. If you look at the CEOs of big companies, very often you will see it's the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, that eventually takes over the company as the CEO. That's almost like the second in charge, the 2IC as we say. And in most of the cases, if not 100%, the number one requirement for a CFO is that you must be a chartered accountant. You must be a chartered accountant. If we look at our results, where are we going to get our chartered accountants from? I've been trying to figure out for the past 2 years or so how many we have amongst us. I have 2-3 names right now in my database, but I presume the results are confirming why I'm not finding them. It's a very, very, very important subject if you want to progress in the business world, in the financial services industry, accounting. But again, between 32 and 45% of our learners have failed it. It's obviously not as bad as with some of the science subjects, but still, it's not a very rosy picture. And so the comparison of the results are basically those subjects that I have chosen. Let's look at the next. Obviously, the question is then, what is the implication of this all? What does it mean in real terms? Well, I have already indicated that the careers, the well-paying careers, the careers that make you climb the economic ladder are actually coming from business subjects in science. Everybody is talking about our oil and gas, hydrogen and all that stuff. That's science. That's science. I have just indicated how people of accounting knowledge climb the ladder in the business world, in the financial world. We can't feature there with this reality. Obviously, with exceptions of one or two people, we can't figure there. So we are literally regressing. If one looks at the global measurements of human advancement, the Millennium Development Goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, and so on, we are obviously sliding backwards in terms of these measures. And the direct implication thereof is that you will find it difficult to join the mainstream of the economy. It's just a simple fact of life. You will not be into the high-paying jobs. You will not go into the private sector, set up your own businesses if you don't have capital, and. These are direct implications of that. But the worst part is the increase in those leads to increase in social problems, crime, violence, rape, whatever else. Maybe these results that we have just looked at perhaps signify the social ills that we're experiencing. Maybe. I'm not a social scientist to make such a conclusion, but maybe people can study and see if there are any parallels between the state of our education and the social problems that we're encountering. Obviously, it does not require rocket science. It's very unlikely that somebody with good education, with a good paying job and so on, will get involved in that stuff. We know that. It's a fact of life. We see that every day and so on. So education, or the lack thereof, has a direct implication on some of those. So what is to be done? I don't know. As I have said earlier on, I have highlighted a problem for which I do not necessarily have a solution. But what I know is there are quite a number of factors obviously at play here. And there are quite a number of stakeholders that must play a role, in us addressing the situation that has just been highlighted. Interesting enough, the data that I have just shown, or the statistics, is actually not a surprise. You can actually look at the data from grade 1 upwards. The data is available. It's just that simply because it is at the end of the school career and the results are announced, that everybody sort of like gets a fright. But you could actually already see this in grade 7, what the results would be. It's a trend, and I've seen the data. And it's actually a trend already. So there's already a build-up of this bomb. It's just, it only explodes in grade 11, and then everybody gets up. But already the homework, the groundwork for that bomb to explode is actually already done way, way, way before. That's the interesting fact. Which means that if we want to tackle this, you can't try to tackle that in grade 11 or grade 12. The build-up is there already. The homework is done. You must just accept the result. So in order for us to do something about it, there are quite a number of role players that must play a role in this important thing. It starts with the learners. We are in a very interesting world today. The world of social media, the world of everything that is so fast. I know we all as parents struggle. I don't think there's any parent in this world who wants something bad for his child. So all parents try to do the best they can to put the learners on the right path. But unfortunately, they find the other path a lot more exciting, and then they gear off. So the learners need to realize, or we make we may need to make the learners realize the value of education. Put it differently, maybe we must make education a bit more sexy, more appealing. Because I have had quite conversations of kids or children that should be in school. They just don't find it exciting. They don't find it exciting. They prefer being a dropout is actually almost like an achievement than someone who is in school. I have made such encounters. So somehow, I don't know where it goes wrong, but education does not seem to be appealing to a lot of our learners, and that needs to start. Then comes the community. The community obviously needs to play a role. The parents need to play a role. It's the parent that sends the child to school. And it's the teacher's job to impart knowledge. So, the parents in the community, broader community, have a duty in ensuring that a child that is receptive of the material to be provided in the classroom is actually the one that enters the classroom. And not a child perhaps with a knife in his pocket. That child should not come to the school. That cannot be the responsibility of the school to enforce discipline. We as parents must send disciplined children to the school. It's not a teacher's job. A teacher is not a policeman or a social worker or whatever else and so on. Equally, school management is to play a role. After all, they run the schools, they run the education system, etc. The school boards have to play an important role besides being parents. The law enforcement has an equally important role to play. One of the downsides of what happened in our communities after independence is that liquor has been localized. I could hardly remember when I was growing up that, in fact, I didn't even knew the word shipping. I heard that word recently, after independence only. We knew, especially in the bigger places, the municipality used to run the bottle stores. It has an opening and a closing time. There was no way that you had access to so much liquor in residential areas. How are the kids supposed to study? When are they supposed to sleep? How conducive are those environments for learning? These are the issues that we need to deal with, and where law enforcement also must play. And why I'm singling out law enforcement is because I understand in most of the places, apparently more than 80% of the shibins or the liquor outlets are illegal. So why are they not closed down if they are illegal? Just a question. I want to go back to something else, or proceed and say something else. Besides all this, there is also something else that I think, in my opinion, is contributing to these high failure rates. And it's the lack of discipline. It seems like schools have become holiday resorts now, or at least some of them. Teachers are really finding it hard. School management is finding it very hard to enforce discipline as a result of the types of children that we as parents are sending to the schools. And why do I think discipline has a role to play here? I was digging around in these results. I made a comparison of the various schools in ÄKaras and made a striking observation that Saint Teresa in chess is beating Sederlich and Gianel in many aspects. So you'd ask the question, but what on earth is in chess that is not in Keetmanshoop at Sederlich and Gianel? If one just looks at it from a layman's point of view, the child in Keetmanshoop ought to be better off than a child in chess. So I actually asked that question to a principal, in fact, at that same very conference, to say, how is it possible that Saint Teresa does better than GNL or Sederlich? And the answer was, that's a Catholic school. I asked, what does that mean? The discipline is different. So if we can only just by doing something as simple as discipline that does not cost any money, any resources, if we can actually change our results, that will be awesome. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of factors at play here. I am not providing any solutions. These are just my ideas. But the long and the short of it is that we are all in this together. Unfortunately, it's like a ship. If the ship sinks, all of us perish. And that's literally where we are. So it's not a matter of, okay, I will take my child to a better school or whatever. If the ship sinks, all of us perish. And we can't overemphasize the crisis of education that we are facing. I mean, I have made this observation that that noise that is made when the results are published, in a few weeks, 2-3 weeks, the noise is gone, life returns to normal, and we wait for the next results. That's how it goes. But we can't continue on that path. We have seen the effects of continuing on that path. Just recently, with the green hydrogen opportunities, where learners were taken for further training, it's public information how the Hardap and ÄKaras children apparently lost out on this opportunity. Lots of reasons were given. Some could be true, some could not be true, perhaps. But what is important is that maybe it's also time for us to face the reality and ask ourselves those important questions to say, how many people do actually qualify for these things? Do we have enough people who qualify to take up these opportunities? We need to face the reality and deal with that. On my part, one thing is clear, and I was hearing that argument during that fiasco of those scholarships, that special provision must be made for learners from these two regions. The only reason for me to perhaps agree a little bit to that principle is the principle of beneficiation. To say, let the resources benefit the people where it comes from. That's it for me. But I wouldn't accept any special requirement or special provision for a child of these two regions other than that particular reason. For me, I want to compete with the best guy and lose and win against the best guy. I don't want any special programs to be created for me. That's literally victimhood. And that is a situation that we can't allow to happen. So perhaps it's time that we look the facts into the eye and deal with the matters at hand and see how we can make progress. I thank you.
Do we have any questions or comments from the audience? Okay.
I can sit on it.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I have been pondering what to say. If I say the few things that is in my mind, then I will end up saying things that I do not myself understand. But what is there is, I think there are things that we have to do if we want to really change the situation. Some years ago, I always say that I think parental involvement of the school boards, for example, as a case in point, constitutionally it is provided that there must be a school board, but so less resources are actually put aside for the development of school board. One difficult thing that I encountered, having been a school board member for some years here in Keetmanshoop, I said school boards are rather being used as rubber stampers. They cannot compete in terms of knowledge with, say, average teacher. And as a result, a school board chairperson and the whole school board, especially the parental part of it, are just there. And they have to comply with what they are being told by the principal and the school teachers, because there is nothing that they can argue. And there is also less that has been done to empower them, to generate their own ideas as to how the education has to be conducted at the school. That's one challenge. When I look at the situation, I have prepared some few things, and I will only take one. Funny enough, or maybe it's a good thing that I did, I look at the SWABO election manifesto plan SWABO election manifesto implementation plan, and they talk about education, and we talk about quality education. Now, one element that is needed when it comes to quality education is, I said, strengthening teacher and training capacity. We need to strengthen teacher and trainer capacity. In other words, we need to invest in professional development for educators and trainers to ensure that they have the skills, the tools, and support they need to deliver the best educational outcomes. And without having this quality in the teaching profession and the trainers, we will not be able to achieve our education goals in terms of outcomes. And this strategy could include offering advanced training, supporting research initiatives, and provide access to modern teaching methodologies. And that's the only way, I think, one element that we can survive. But are we prepared to do that? Or do we have in mind to do that? And how soon should we do that? Is the education budget that we have allocated national level adequate to implement all sorts of challenges that we can do in order to overcome or progress from quantity education to quality education. Because currently our situation, let's admit it, it is that yes, you are being enrolled at grade 1, and then you progress to grade 2, grade 3, and it's just business as usual. There is no quality check where you are and how you are progressing. And with that way, we are not going to able to actually come up with an outcome where we are going to have market-ready workforce at the end of the day. I suggest, Chris, that I think this discussion should not end in this room. I would think that we must find resources, to actually engage the broader community, maybe confining to our region, broader community about education, and we must actually go around and make suggestions, and probably also, be accepted by the ministry itself, that we can probably make serious input in written forms to this is what should be done, is what we think as ÄKaras Region Education Regional Forum. That would be one thing. And then I will, of course, also, as part of my contribution, I have some 9 points that I would like to share with this forum under your leadership. And then we can probably take it from there and see how we can achieve one by one. That is my suggestion. Otherwise, it's a very important topic. But I think we have the challenge even now with the law enforcement is that discipline is the problem, and then bullying is also becoming a common practice at our school. Parents are afraid to send their kids to school because on their way to school, back from the school, there is a lot of gang fightings among the learners. In that process, we are also losing out on probably children that could be very intelligent, that could be future, doctors, engineers, and so on. But the society's leadership are not actually taking any steps to, rectify that situation. It's very alarming. And as a result, you end up children going to school and, stop halfway and come back later as if they are coming from the school. Parents too later found out that, well, I think my kid has not been in school for several weeks. Again, also on the part of parents, we don't even ask a single book from the kids as they come home. What have you done today in the class? What you want to do is, and that's all about our education. So I think let's really settle down and talk about these things more and more times and make concrete suggestions and also monitor, In Nordic countries or in Scandinavian countries, their education system works this way. A child is being monitored since the first day that he or she has been enrolled. And the child becomes the child of the community, not only of the parents. So that everybody shows interest in the progress the child is making. And then we trace it until the child probably reaches the highest tertiary levels. And we know that, well, I think the child that started, in this year, 1960, at the end of the day, he is now a medical doctor. That's how society cares about, school-going children. That culture also has to be inculcated. Currently, it's not present. I thank you.
Okay. Afternoon, everyone. I had to write also a few comments based off the presentation. But my first concern or my first ask would be, was this an open invitation to actually invite the youth, the people that really needed to be here, that also really needed to give their inputs and their concerns based off the presentation? So I just wanted to throw that question out there. Were they actively invited to be part of this discussion right now, to say, okay, we are having this, please come, whether you are a student or, because you can be a student until you die, until 90. We all keep learning, whether it's academically or intellectually, we are continuously learning. So, but this is based off the education, right? Academics. So from grade 7, grade 8, grade 6, those kids already had to be in this room up until tertiary, whether you're how old. So those were the people that also actually needed to be here. So that was actually my first concern, because the room is quite empty. But then I had to note down just a few things. You mentioned something around social sciences as majors, right? Since the kids can't go into STEM because of the subjects that were presented on. So my first concern is, okay, what is wrong with social sciences? Because society also can't function without the people within the social science field. So at the end of the day, all the majors at university level is necessary, and it is important. One of my concerns also, as I was looking at the statistics, were, yes, I can see that there's regression in accordance with the results. And then I was thinking, our curriculum, is it developed with kids in mind, with the children, to actually accommodate children or to accommodate the people that sit around the tables and implement policies on how they think education should be? Because firstly, we have to understand individuals, no two people are the same. So how do we accommodate someone that is not well equipped in STEM or well equipped in social science to see, okay, from early, and I loved the fact that I didn't get your name, sorry, Mr. Chris already said that data is there to show that it's not just about the grade 10 results or the grade 12 results. And this is something that we've been mentioning over and over if you look at the youth. So many times the focus is placed on grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 results. Did you monitor the child from grade 1? Were the systems placed in order to accommodate that child when they saw that within grade 1, within grade 2, within grade 3, there was a learning not disability, but a learning defect or something that this child is not good in this? How do we accommodate the child here? Maybe the child is a bit slow. Maybe this is how this child can learn. Some kids learn by visuals, others by auditory, others by hearing. So it's different. Are children really accommodated? And this goes back to the curriculum. Does it accommodate every child? And I know, yes, we can't always accommodate people, but we also can't talk about constant data of kids are failing, kids are doing this is not happening, this is not happening. Are we actually really actively involving the children to accommodate them? One of my concerns has always been, and I love that we are also here, looking at the language. English is not our mother tongue. It came on a ship, half the words fell into the water. Okay, so I can't be expected to speak English fluently if it's not my mother tongue. Because at home, I'm already, when you are growing up and you are developing in Kwekwekowap, in Oshiherero, in Afrikaans. So that is your first thought of process with any information. But now, within the school curriculum, I'm expected to communicate in English, which is not my native tongue, which I struggle with to pronounce. And this also brings me to another point around when we talk about accommodation with the English language is academically. We want kids to be boxed in how the curriculum is set up. Other kids are intellectual. I can understand what you are saying from X, Y, Z in how I'm understanding it, and it will still bring us to X, Y, Z, even if I go from here to Swakop, to Ochivarongo, to Katima before I come to ÄKaras. But you get the message, right? It is still the same equation. It's just not the way you want it. And then the next person will just go from A to B directly. Two different people. However, most kids are measured by the box that was already placed there, that they did not choose. None of us chose it. So now you have to write exactly how the book is saying, when Hendrik Witbooi in 19 did what. You have to narrate it like that. Does that develop a child intellectually or academically? Because we receive information different and we process it different. So already there with the curriculum, we have to change that. And in regards with the ಃKaras, especially based off the statistics or the data that was given around the STEM programs, I also wanted to know. So many times, and I love that you also touched around the opportunities that is made available. Most times you'll see initiatives and activities within Windhoek, within the North. Let me touch a few feathers right now. To the coast, to where? How are activities and involvement made accessible in the ಃKaras region? Around STEM, just to throw it out there, can you mention one STEM program that has been actively involved in the communities for the past 20 years, apart from school? Is it in existence? A program that, not school program, but a community program or a CSO or just a program apart from the formal education that majors in STEM, that is actively been standing and involved for the ಃKaras people or children for more than 10 years? Is there? Is there? It's a question because, and we have to look at it. Are those programs actually really there to say that, yes, at school we have to pass in this. It is a need because it's the future, right? But apart from that, are we as the individuals then also bringing it together to say, okay, let's grow your interest in physical science, in economics, so that this is then a contributing or a benefit for the child within their formal education. Do we have those programs? So we also can't expect children to be interested, as you said. Some kids really do feel, if you have conversation with kids, because they are very wise, they do feel that education sometimes is boring because the teacher was just standing there. The teacher also doesn't teach us properly. She just comes in, reach on page what. They will tell you this. But do we really say that apart from the school, the teacher, if we talk about discipline, we as the community actually involved ourselves and say, okay, we are having a STEM program at the municipality hall. We're going to teach you about the numbers in a fun way. We're going to teach you about biology in a fun way, about chemistry. Be actively involved. It's even going to be translated in Kwekwekovap. Through dance, through play, maybe the children will get involved. Maybe they'll see that, okay, this is actually not as bad as I thought. Are those programs involved? So because we can't at the end of the day say grade 10, 30% failed. And yet we did not do our part in saying, okay, this 30% is a collective. It's not just on the child. We also didn't bring our part. We didn't contribute to that. I know I'm talking a lot right now, but I get very passionate about certain things. And then there's another question, because I'm now saying too much, that I actually wanted to throw to Mr. Chris, that being the chair board, right? And I know you said you guys only started in August, if I heard correctly. So far, I'm looking at the results, looking at the ಃKaras region. You work with the communities, the individuals, the education. You've probably picked up the gaps. You also understand that there are certain needs that has arisen, especially with the contributing factors of the students. Some just don't have opportunities. Some just psychosocially, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, they are also not well. Because that so many times is overlooked, because most schools, this is also, when it comes to life skills teachers, topic for another day. So how would you say, have you done or are you thinking about implementing in regards with, just with your time, into contributing to the numbers or better these results, or at least look at I don't want to say dropouts, but the kids that couldn't make it further the children that couldn't make it further, into implementing programs or actually having active discussions with them to look at what opportunities or collaborations can I do now, Mr. Chris, do with the children from their understanding to actually really help the progression of the data and not the regression thereof. So, sorry, that was a rant.
We take one more.
Yeah, and let me comment while it is still fresh. Okay. The comments by Steve are obviously comments. They are not questions, and they are welcome. And again, as a forum, as the Regional Education Forum, our job is to represent the stakeholders. Therefore, it's for us to reach out to the stakeholders, gather the necessary information and ideas, and channel that through to the education authorities. As I have said, this is an advisory body to the minister. So that's our job. So we welcome all those ideas from Steve, and he will certainly share those 9 points that he has mentioned with him, and we can see how we can build that into the various activities that we have in mind. So yeah, maybe just that on the point, Steve. On the last speaker, yes, you were talking about the participation of learners here. It's not even the participation of learners. It should be about even the participation of the parents here. This place is full down there. People are dancing and having fun. And here we are talking about education in an empty hall. Now, obviously, that could be a result of various factors in terms of how topics are being disseminated in advance and so on. But normally, it's the other activities that are actually attracting more people, unfortunately, that we know. So this place, first of all, should have been packed with parents before I even talk about the children. But one is obviously hoping that with the online audience that the message will get out, and also as a forum, we have to do more engagements, because we are literally sort of like the go-between the authorities and the various stakeholders that I have mentioned. So we need to have outreach activities and have conversations like this, as Steve said, that he not actually dies here, but we continue these conversations. And that's actually one of the ideas that we have as a forum, to come back to one of the, basically your last comment in terms of what we are doing and so on. The one thing about our country is that we are very good at putting very good things in laws and so on. And but execution is something else. There's a statutory body that is established by an act of parliament. But when it comes to the resourcing of this body, nobody seems to know. It's totally dependent on availability of resources from central government. Next week, we will be, so besides the regional education forums, there is also the National Advisory Council on Education, NACE. We will be sitting next week, and one of the issues that we'll take up with the authorities, hopefully the minister will also be there, at least to open the event and so on, is the one of the availability of resources. That there is the expectation from the forum to play a critical role, but if no resources are available, how does one do that? And that's currently a constraint, but it's an issue that we are trying to address. What's wrong with social sciences? Absolutely nothing. Life is a perfect system. We need everybody. Everybody's needed somehow. But the important thing is and people study various things because of their own interest and own ideas and so on. But where does that take you? At the end of the day, you can do something that is based on your interest, but hopefully you want to make a living from it. Therefore, your interest should not be the only determining factor. The question would be, where will this take us? We read every day of thousands of graduates sitting at home and doing nothing. Those are people who studied things where they have interest in, but maybe there was not sufficient demand of those skills in the industry. So one has to strike a balance between what your interest is and what life demands. So there's nothing, it's not like one is trying to put down social sciences, but it's more a matter of, because even the person who has studied something and is sitting home is frustrated. That person is not necessarily happy and telling him or herself every day, I'm so glad I have studied what I liked. No, you can't tell yourself that forever. And it's from that perspective. It's about where is this taking you in the future that that particular comment was made. And unfortunately, it's the sciences, it's the engineering, it's the finance and all that stuff that is people that is taking or that are taking people places. Yeah. I think that should be my response to the comments from the last speaker.
Is there any other hand? Okay, I see. I will first, give Steve and thereafter.
Thank you. This time I'll be sitting. Well, Chris asked, what are the problems with reference to centers high school tests? You know, promoting the culture of alumni, the former learner culture, reflecting back, looking back to the past and see what we can do. One thing, and I'm saying, I think it should have also really contributed towards the approach to education attitude at CES. What we did is that those of us in the early years of independence, after independence, we constituted ourselves into alumni, where we physically actually went to the school. And lucky enough, by the time when we did this, Ms. Kruse was the principal, and then she really supported the idea. We had also external support staff in the person of Dr. Chris Williams, who is currently a lecturer at, I think, Bloemfontein University. He is doing anthropology. And we had actually really face-to-face contact, telling the learners how we started our education, and that way we ended up inspiring them. So that I think we should probably also look at that possibility, that we should actually encourage and support the idea of alumni that would actually send back those who passed there to come back again to the schools and share their experiences and the successes that they have reached in life. That would be quite inspiring. I believe so. Yeah, I was also very silent and thinking about the idea in the field of medics. I was thinking also that we have good number of medical doctors from our villages as we are speaking now. And I was thinking that maybe we should also maybe develop a program whereby we are taking them from place to place in a few places, say in the ಃKaras region, where the surnames are known, names are known, the villages they are coming from are known, and they talk, and they share with us where they came from and what they did to be at this level, you know. I should say that when I normally go to the clinic, you would also hear patients expressing satisfaction because for the first time in years, we are now able to communicate to our own without really hesitation and without asking a question, but will I be understood if I go and complain my ailments. So I think that sort of a thing is what I'm proposing also. Chris, lastly, also let me also be able to say that one element that we really actually overlook in education is the issue of the inclusive education. Now, inclusive education has to do with to ensure that educational opportunities are accessible to all, including children with disabilities and also children in their rural settings. I believe this would involve providing specialized support systems, materials, and accommodation to ensure that everyone can fully participate in higher education and vocational training. That element of education is also greatly being overlooked, and I feel that, of course, it's part of the 9 points, that this has also to be taken care of very seriously because many a times, I think she also alluded to it indirectly that children with, of difficulties in learning or people who are differently able-bodied are being left out in the process, and then I think that's one thing that we have to consciously taking decisions to include them as a matter of serious discussions and considerations.
Good evening. I missed the whole part of the presentation, so I don't know whether this was addressed or not. And my question in part touches on what the lady said. So it is regarding the AS level for grade 11. So normally previously, you'd go up to grade 12 and some of the people still, or children still didn't make it to university or didn't require to go to university, but at least you got the grade 12 certificate and then you had job positions like an admin officer whose requirements are grade 12 and you could still secure that even though you didn't make it to university. So then my question is, with kids that now are unable to make it to, or if they don't take it to AS level, won't be able to make it to grade 12, are they accommodated with these requirements for these type of job positions? Because grade 11 for them would be the grade 12 for us with the old curriculum. So are they accommodated or will they be considered for these job positions as well?
And my question is grade 11, grade 12 today?
Firstly, I want to thank the Nama Cultural Festival for making it possible for the presenter to be here to share information. For the presenter, thank you so much for enlightening. I think you started off with the open question of, I don't have solutions, but I'm here to give information. And it sparked questions amongst us as parents, as people that are in schools, as grandparents. Even if the pupils are not here, I think you came to get the purpose of your presentation. So I am a servant of the municipality. My name is Bais, and I think in terms of a village concept that we are talking about, a child goes through a village concept. It's just not one person raising the child. So I would ask, what is the level of relationship that you have with the Keetmanshoop municipality? Because we are looking forward for platforms with information such as this so that we can tap into the programs that we have. And I'm glad that today I could sit in, even though I wanted to go home with my baby, but that is my question. How strong is your relationship with the municipality? Because we want to groom in terms of mentorship, we want to groom. We have internship programs, not just for graduates, those that are not graduates, those that only have grade 12 or 8 or grade 11 or 10. So please, we are grateful that you could open the eyes and say that this is the statistics. What can we do about it? So I'm an accountant by background. So I was very interested in mathematics and accounting. And it sparked a concept of, in Keetmanshoop, we don't have audit firms. There's no PwC, there's no Ernst & Young, there's no Deloitte. And the question is why? There's no local accounting firm that we can say, take accounting students from the high schools here and take them through a 3-5-year program to become chartered. So thank you so much for bringing the statistics and for us as servants to take it back to our offices and say, this is what we heard. Can we collaborate with the presenter and make meaningful impact as a service delivery? Thank you.
Good evening, guys. My name is Andrew. Ek wil toch net Afrikaans is ons ook beter, né? English. Kwe. Nobody gets so grow. So, age fana kalori. Okay. Ek wil hê we have to strict our discipline op die beste level. Daar's 'n teacher disciplined. Hy moet hier so op tyd wees. Ek het kom ingestap laat. Ek kan uitstap. Ek kom geen net 'n rede, dan gaan ek uit. Julle was geslaan. Whether you want to be in the panel discussion or you don't want to be, ou mense het gesê jy sal daar gaan sit and you're going to contribute. Municipality, byvoorbeeld, hulle sê, how are we going to deal with the grade 8s? How are we going to do this? How are we going to treat these children? How are we going... Die goede gaan nog net pamperlam in. We make it strict. We try our best. And one thing, speaking about education, is that teachers never get credit. As die kind geleer het, die kind slag, parents sê, oh, my kind het toch mooi geleer. Die kind is slim. As die kind dryp, die manier het my kind geleer het. We come back to our president, for example, to our vice president. What happened there with the gulp or whatever? Something like that. It wasn't mooi nie. It's baie lelik. And one thing I also want to ask is to, I don't know who I have to ask this question to. Waar het die historietjie geflop? Waar die mense sê, die sambok moet weggevat word. Wie is die persoon? This white narrative, we have to stop that. Ons moet hierso, we must dance the Namibian dance. Ons doen dat Namibian style. We can't do this European. No, the child mustn't be done what? Die kind moet die ander keer toe sit ek met my sister se kind en ek sê nee, ons bid nou. Die kind sê ek wil nie bid nie. Hey, ons sal nou bid en ek is nou 'n bietjie kwaad en so aan. Ons bid met die Here ons grapie so. Nou wat van as my kind mos nie wil bid nie? En my kind wil mos nie bid nie. Didi, dada. And we have to make these things strict. Alles wat ons maak dit net. Ons gee opportunities tot wanneer doen. Ons het zulke discussions elke dag, dan komt daar weer een nieuwe in, en dan weer een nieuwe in, en dan weer een nieuwe in. Ons hardloop rondom die bos, ons kry nie 'n boei nie. Kom ons gaan bietjie in die bos in. Ek ken nie of julle my kry nie. Dankie.
Sorry. Thank you very much for all of those really thought-provoking input. I will now hand back to our presenter to close.
Thank you. Just a few comments on the comments that were made in the last round, starting with Steve. The thing about the alumni program, it's a very important thing, and it's also an idea that we also have in mind. If one looks at a school like Saint Therese, the people that came out of that school, a lot of you, if you don't know, will not believe those are products of Saint Therese. These are schools that have produced people who went far in life. The same is true with GNL here. It's painful to see GNL like that, knowing what GNL produced. I am myself a product of GNL. There are known names in industry everywhere in this country. People used to come from all sorts of places to GNL. Today it's a laughing stock. So the alumni program is very important. Perhaps it may mean a lot to the kid standing there today if he or she realizes, oh, but Mrs. X, Mrs. Who and who, who's today what, is actually coming from here. Oh, then I can also do it. It's possible. It's about, that alumni program is about bringing success home. People, very often you can tell people what is possible, but it remains a story until you bring it home, until they actually see. But he is Antonio. I used to play together with him. Look where he is. Then it rings a bell to say, this is how Antonio got there. That makes a lot of sense instead of just telling somebody what is possible. So the alumni programs are important, and also it's also one of the things that we have in mind as a forum to implement. What does the future hold for those who didn't make it to grade 12? I honestly can answer you that question, my sister, because I am also very much confused about where we are. Anthony actually made the comment. You see, initially we thought everything that was taught until grade 12 has been pushed into the new curriculum until grade 11. But then, when some institutions started saying, I will not take a learner with grade whatever, then you wonder, now what does this mean now? We thought everything is included in the 11. So all of us are confused about it. We are still trying to figure out. So therefore, that remains a difficult question. I mean, officially we have been told that the official school curriculum ends at 11. It's only those who may need to go to specialized fields that actually need the grade 12. That's what we as a lay person understood initially. But that's something that we're still trying to figure out. I really can't give you an answer on that one. Keetmanshoop municipality, can you make sure that only licensed bins are operational? Yeah, that will be a huge help if we can establish order in a place like Keetmanshoop. That will be good. Obviously, it's not the municipality's job on its own, but together with law enforcement. But from what I'm understanding, the licensing part of these things are falling under it's a trade issue, so it therefore falls under the municipality. Our relationship with the municipality, we have not really reached out to the various stakeholders. We are planning on doing so. So it's now good to know that that we can potentially partner with the Keetmanshoop municipality and perhaps with municipalities in other towns. So it's just a matter of reaching out, and we will certainly do that. As I have said, we are trying to figure out the issue of the resourcing of the forum itself, such that we can decide what is it that we can attempt to take on or not. Yeah. My brother was talking about discipline. I couldn't agree more. All successful people, does not matter what it is, whether it is in sports, whether it is in education, whether it is in business, all successful people have one thing in common, and that's discipline. They say motivation is what makes you start. Discipline is what makes you end. It's the juice, it's the fuel that you need to keep going. So without discipline, nothing works. As much as life is a perfect system, it absolutely needs discipline. So that's something that we obviously need to inculcate at various levels.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to our presenter, Mr. Chris Baisako, and the wonderful engagement from the side of the ÄKaras Regional Educational Forum. Yeah, thank you very much. And also thank you very much to our audience for all the inputs, the contributions, the comments posted, the ideas. And I also really appreciated the comment that was made in terms of how we can also bring about a sort of action, and not just to talk about these issues, but through these engagements, we believe as creating a conducive platform, it can give birth to things that can cause change in our community. So thank you very much for all of those inputs. We are now at the end of our presentation and the discussions for the panel discussion.